Today is the worst day of your life. In the morning, your boss tears you apart in front of the whole team. At noon, she ends it in a single paragraph. Now, you're sitting alone on the sofa in the dark. And then something warm presses against you, an apex predator's descendant, an animal that shares almost none of your DNA, whose ancestors your ancestors used to hunt, exposes its throat, rolls onto its back, and falls asleep against your chest. The single most vulnerable position a living creature can assume. Here's what's strange about that. It hasn't been tricked. It hasn't been tamed into tolerating you. Somewhere in that animal's brain, there is a slot reserved for the individuals it belongs to. Parents, siblings, offspring, and you are in it, not near it, in it. By every rule of evolution, that should be impossible. So I want to show you what's actually happening inside that animal's head, why it happens to some species and not others, and why by nature's own definition, it isn't a mistake at all. Because in the wild, family isn't a feeling. Family is math. Every calorie an animal spends on another creature is a calorie that doesn't go into its own genes. Every minute spent protecting something else is a minute of exposure. That's why family in nature is a narrow category. Parents, siblings, offspring, everything outside that is competition. And then there's a cat sleeping on your chest whose ancestors managed 5,000 generations without you. A parrot that will outlive you, screaming when you leave the room. A dog that will run towards something bigger than itself because you're standing behind it. So did these animals actually file us as family? Or do we just need them to? Start with the experiment that moved this argument the most. 2015, Azabu University in Japan. A team led by Miho Nagasawa and Takafumi Kikusui put dogs and their owners in a room together for 30 minutes. No commands, no task, just be in the room. Before and after, they collected urine samples from both of them. They were measuring oxytocin, the hormone that builds the bond between a mother and a newborn, the biochemical glue of the mammal family. The dogs that spent the most time looking at their owners showed oxytocin increases of around 130%. Their owners went up too. One look and two brains from two different species release the same hormone into a loop that keeps feeding itself. That loop is not similar to the one between a mother and her infant. It's the same loop. And then comes the part that changes everything. The same researchers ran the experiment with hand-raised wolves, animals bottle-fed by humans, who had never known anything else from the day they were born. The wolves didn't look. No gaze, no loop, no oxytocin. So it isn't upbringing. It's something built into the dog that isn't built into the wolf. And dogs are the easy case. We made them for this. Cats we didn't. Cats largely domesticated themselves roughly 10,000 years ago by moving in next to human grain stores. Genetically, they're barely separated from their wild ancestors. Most house cats could walk out the door and survive. In 2019, Kristen Vitale at Oregon State University ran cats through a test borrowed from child psychology. It's called the strange situation, and it's the standard method for measuring how a human infant is attached to its parent. The person leaves the room. The animal is alone. The person comes back. And everything depends on what happens in the few seconds after the return. A securely attached child greets the parent briefly, then goes straight back to exploring. The parent isn't entertainment. The parent is the safe base you explore the world from. Around 64% of cats did exactly that. In human infants, the number is about 65. And there's more. Adult cats almost never meow at each other. Meowing isn't cat language. It's something cats developed for us, a channel that exists between them and exactly one other species. In 2009, researchers at the University of Sussex found that cats can embed a high-frequency component inside their purr when they want something, a frequency that sits in the same range as a human infant's cry. They built a signal that reaches directly into our caregiving system. Now, the skeptic in you should be arguing right now, of course they do this. We feed them. We built warm houses. We bought their affection with calories and shelter. What looks like love is just an evolutionary transaction, dressed up to feel like something more. And for a long time, that's exactly what evolutionary biology assumed too, until someone checked what happens when you remove the transaction entirely. 1959, Novosibirsk, Siberia. The geneticist Dmitry Belyaev starts breeding silver foxes on a fur farm and selects for one single trait: which fox doesn't snap when a hand comes into the cage. That's it. Not affection, not eye contact, not loyalty, just the absence of fear. Within about 10 generations, he had foxes that whimpered when a person walked away, that licked faces, that climbed into laps and wanted to be held. And alongside the behavior came floppy ears, curled tails, patchy coats, traits nobody was selecting for at all. Nobody bred for love. It came along when the fear left. And then there's the case with no human in it at all. In 2011, off the Azores, biologists documented a group of sperm whales traveling with an adult bottlenose dolphin, a different species, a fraction of their size, with a spinal deformity that had likely gotten it rejected by its own kind. The whales let it stay. They swam with it. They rubbed against it. They tolerated it around their calves. So whatever machinery decides who counts as family, it isn't pointed at humans specifically. It's just loose. So what's actually happening inside these animals' heads? The most likely answer is deflating and fascinating at the same time. There is no category in the brain called family that runs a species check. What there is a checklist. Is this creature constantly near me? Is it predictable? Does food come from it? Does warmth? Has it never once turned on me? Do I recognize it as an individual, not as a type, but as this specific one? Does it come back? Whatever passes the list gets filed under mine. There's no field for same species. There never needed to be one. In the wild, the answer was already correct 99.9% of the time, so nothing ever evolved to double-check it. Konrad Lorenz demonstrated this in the 1930s with greylag geese. After hatching, a window opens in the brain and stays open for a few hours. The first thing that moves and makes noise is mother, permanently. In Lorenz's case, that thing was a man in rubber boots, and those geese followed him for the rest of their lives. The system doesn't verify anything. It fills a slot. With dogs, something else stacks on top of that. Domestication froze them in a developmental stage. A dog is, in a lot of ways, a permanent adolescent. Floppy ears, round skull, oversized eyes, whining, playing well into old age. A wolf grows out of all of it. A dog never does. And a juvenile animal has an open slot for a caregiver by definition. In 2019, a team led by Julian Kaminsky found out how far this actually goes. Dogs have a facial muscle that wolves essentially don't, the levator anguli oculi medialis. Its only job is to lift the inner eyebrow. That's the look, the one that makes you get up and feed them. That muscle appeared in roughly 30,000 years. Because generation after generation, we kept choosing the puppies that looked at us that way. So we didn't just breed animals that accept us as family. We bred animals that make us accept them as family. This bond was built from both ends. And here's where the story gets a lot less warm, because everything I just described can be told a completely different way, not as family, as a takeover. To a mammal brain, we are a supernormal stimulus. Food without hunting, warmth without competition, safety without fighting for rank. No animal with a functioning reward system would turn that down. What looks like devotion might just be the most rational decision that animal ever made. In that reading, the cat's purr isn't affection. It's an exploit, a signal engineered to hit a weak point in our nervous system. And then there's the asymmetry almost nobody talks about. We bred the alternative out of these animals. A dog can't choose to live alone. We removed the capacity. And then we named the result loyalty. He waits at the door all day. You're gone 8 hours. And then you come back. For you, that's a slice of the day. For him, it's the entire thing. And underneath all of it sits the number nobody wants. For every animal living in a home and called family, there are millions of the same species inside systems where that question is never asked at all. Same biology, same capacity for attachment. We just decide when to call it family. And the largest problem stays the largest problem. We can't ask them. Everything we call being accepted as family is behavior we're interpreting from the outside. But there are 3 things that explanation doesn't dissolve. First, oxytocin can't be projected. The value in a dog's urine isn't a story we're telling ourselves about our pet. It's a lab result. And it climbs on both sides at the same time. Second, cats. Cats were never bred for dependency. They aren't locked in. Most of them could leave tomorrow and survive. They stay anyway, and they show the same attachment pattern as a human toddler. Third, and this is the uncomfortable one, there is no separate system in the brain for real family that you could compare any of this to. Your bond with your mother runs on oxytocin, on an attachment system shaped in your first years of life, on a secure base you explored the world from, on individual recognition, repetition, and presence. The exact same machinery. There is no second, better version of it reserved for humans. The animal asleep against your leg right now isn't confusing you with its own kind. It ran the calculation. It didn't look at your DNA. Because the brain doesn't care about double helixes. It cares about who stays when things get cold. You didn't choose your own family either. Your brain simply recorded who was there, who came back, who fed you when you couldn't feed yourself. And if an animal's attachment to you is just an evolutionary illusion, then so is yours to everyone you've ever loved. But maybe it was never a mistake. You kept coming back, every day, for years, across 5,000 generations of wild independence, across species lines, across millions of years of evolution that gave every one of these animals every reason to keep its distance. That creature looked at a human, ran the math, and decided, you are home.